All right. Welcome in, everyone who's hopping on. Great to have you here. Everyone joining as you are popping on, if it's available to you and you're at a place where you can open the little chat box, go ahead and hover around the bottom of your screen and open up the chat and say hello. And there's a little arrow when you open the chat down below where you can send a note to hosts and panelists, or you can select everyone. So if you select everyone, we'll all be able to see each other saying hi. But if you select hosts and panelists, only we will be able to see it. So. We'll get started in about 2 to 3 minutes. So just hang out, keep the chat open, say hello. Hey, Isabel. Hey, Polly. Good morning, Carly. Hi, Linda. Hi, Gabrielle. Gabrielle. Probably pronounced that wrong. Pilar, hello. Hey, Barbara.
Tessie will have to invest in some like pump up music, while everyone waits. Yeah.
That beginning of the webinar, like welcome song is what we need.
Yes.
All right, we've got lots of people popping on. So great to have everyone. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Linda, welcome. Ooh, joining from Portland. Hey, Carol. Morning, Virginia. Isabel's asking about how long we'll be here, about an hour, and there will be a replay or recording. What's up, Ron? Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. If you're just hopping on, I mentioned before, go ahead and open the chat. And when you have the chat open, you want to click the little down arrow where it might say hosts and panelists and select everyone. That way we'll all be able to see. If you have questions along the way that's popping up for you as Dr. Lozinskaya gives her amazing, very valuable presentation, you can put them in the chat. We will try to leave time at the end for a Q&A. So know that there will be time to ask questions at the end as well. And along the way, if you have questions, you can put them in there and we'll do our best to kind of moderate those. And in getting started, so most of you I know are members of OsteoStrong. I'm Tessie. If you don't know me, I'm at our OsteoStrong Lakewood and DTC, the director of marketing, and I'm one of our managers. We have Greg on the call, who's our owner. So I'm going to pass it over to Greg to just share a little more if you're not 100% familiar. I know there's some of you on here who might not be, with what OsteoStrong is, what we do if you're not already a member. So take it away, Greg.
Awesome. Thank you, Tessie. Good morning, everyone. Great to see a lot of familiar names on the webinar this morning. I have an amazing speaker coming up for you, but first, anyone who's on that's not familiar with OsteoStrong, I just wanted to give a quick overview of what we do. So as you're looking into bone health, maintaining bone health, improving bone health, there are several tools that you want to have in your arsenal. One of which is loading your bone. And a mistake that we see frequently is a lot of people think that things like walking and weightlifting are the most effective forms of loading your bone. And studies have proven over and over that that's not true. You actually need to put more stimulus on your bone than what can be achieved through traditional exercise. And that is the entire reason that OsteoStrong exists in the first place. We have unique technology designed by Dr. John Jaquish, whose mother had osteoporosis. And the short explanation for what we do is there are specialized machines that allow pretty much anyone of any age or physical ability to safely and effectively put more stress, stimulus, and force on their bone than you can any other way. And that triggers your body to respond. And now there's other factors in terms of how well your body responds. And that's why we love working with amazing doctors like Dr. Ina. So I'll let Tessie introduce Dr. Ina, and then we will get started. But for anyone who's on that is interested in learning more about OsteoStrong or trying it, we do have a special offer for anyone on the webinar. And so we'll post it and we'll talk more at the end, but you can go to osteostrongdenver.com/webinar and get started with a free consultation to learn more with our team. Oh, I think you're muted, Tessie.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. So now we'll get started with the main event, the presentation from Dr. Ina Lozinskaya, who is a physician and a functional medicine practitioner. She specializes actually in healthy aging and anti-aging and really supporting us as we're going through life to really feel vibrant, feel that vitality, balance our hormones. So she's going to speak into that today. And I will let her share a little more about her journey and even going from physician to functional medicine and how she got to where she is today. And fun fact that I share as well is that she is a member at our DTC center. So welcome, Dr. Lozinskaya. And we are so grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Tessie and Greg, and it's certainly an honor to speak to your group. And you guys are so amazing. You are ahead of the game because you're already looking into how to improve your health and what are the ways to feel better and do well or do better without being dependent on medications. Let me share my screen and pull the slides, and we will go from there. Hold on. Let me get it working. Great. Hold on. Not quite. Let me try to share my screen again and see if we can make it work this way. There we go. Now we're in business. Okay, so hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to talk about pillars of health, pillars of wellness. In other words, what are the practical steps that have to be addressed in order for us to feel well? Because when we're young, being healthy is easy, it just happens. And as we get to midlife, it's just no longer a default, and health is now a choice you have to make consciously. And if that's the choice, then you have to take right action steps to help yourself not to slow down the aging and reverse biological clock and just feel great and love the way you feel. So today webinar is all about you, and so I really would love to see some interaction. I really want it to be a conversation rather than a lecture. So Tessie already said where the chat is. Feel free, ask away. I will talk for about 45 minutes, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. So who this webinar is for today? You know, as we reach midlife, there are several things that happen. First of all, our metabolism slows down, and all of a sudden we have this tendency for blood sugar being erratic, and we get prediabetes and diabetes sometimes, and blood pressure starts going up, and cholesterol starts going up, and bones become weaker, and energy is down, and we don't sleep as well, and our mood is all over the place, and our brain gets foggy, and we just don't think clearly the way we used to think. And those are the things that can happen. They are all imbalances, and they all can happen as we reach midlife. And all of them are reversible. It's all functional imbalances. But unfortunately, when you come to your primary care doctor and talk about it, they all will tell you that, you know, it's normal because your blood work looks normal. Or even worse, they'll tell you, what do you want? You're 35, you're 45, you're 55, you're 65, you're 70. And the reality is, this is not normal. You don't have to feel this way. I don't care how old you are. Things always can be better if you're doing the right steps. So this webinar today is for you, whether you're dealing with hypertension or diabetes or prediabetes or osteoporosis or autoimmune disease, or if you are actually doing well and you just want to make sure that going forward you continue to be well and you want to learn about the right steps. So what we're going to talk about in this webinar today is briefly about healthcare crisis and the health crisis we're living in these days. We will talk about root cause or underlying cause that your primary care doctor unfortunately will not talk to you about. And yet it's paramount, it's extremely important. We will talk about, most importantly, how to take action and what are the right steps to keep yourself well. And at the end of it, I will, for those who are on webinar, I will be happy to offer a free discovery call. And it will be 15 minutes one-on-one with me, and we can go over what is your story and what are the imbalances you're dealing with, and how do I think we could help you if that's what you're looking for, or if you're trying to do it on your own, what are the steps that you need to take. And reality these days is that most people are on prescription medications once you get to 50s or older, and statistically we are actually expected, American statistics says that on average, Americans take 4 medications a day, which I think is wrong. There is no reason for it, and yet it's our reality. And that's what I'm calling health crisis. I mean, most of the world doesn't live like this. You should not get dependent on medications simply because you're a little older. And here is our reality. We spend $3.5 trillion a year on healthcare, and that's twice as much as any country in the world. And yet, if you look at the bottom of the slide, you know, we are very much at the bottom, you know, in terms of our health among developed countries. And this is a crisis, in my opinion. And the problem, the reason for it, the main reason for it, I think, is because none of us in traditional medicine are dealing with a root cause, and that's a problem. And let me tell you a little bit about my story and how I ended up in functional medicine, because I've done 26 years I'm a medical doctor, and I spent 26 years in traditional healthcare system, and I worked in a hospital, you know, years of helping people survive, and you know, in acute care, in intensive care unit. And I always believed that's the way, that's the best medicine can do, because that's all we get trained in traditional medicine. We came to the States, my husband and I, when we were 26, and we were super healthy and slim and trim and happy. It was our American dream. And we worked very hard to make that dream work. Just like all of us, basically, we had to do license exams and start practicing and build up a career and build the family. And so we've done all that. And of course, life was stressful, but everybody's life is stressful these days, right? And several years down the road, all of a sudden, I had 15-pound weight gain and my hair falling out, and I was tired all the time. And then I had miscarriages one after another, and headaches, and so many things were abnormal and in the way I felt. And yet every time I would go see my doctor, they would run my blood work and they would say, everything is normal, you're perfectly healthy, whatever you're doing, keep doing that. And I kept saying, I don't feel normal, I don't even feel like myself anymore. And yet, your labs are normal, so you're good. And so it took me 15 years. Finally, at the age 40, I noticed that my memory is not as good as it used to be. And I was not losing keys, but it was harder and harder to learn new stuff, and I was forgetting, and it was not okay. And yet another checkup with my doctor, and I surely was confident they will find something this time. And the same story, everything is normal. So I finally realized that while traditional medicine has amazing answers for people who are trying to die in intensive care unit, we really don't have answers for people who just don't feel like themselves and don't feel optimal and want more from life than just this slow, fatigue and poor memory and just, slow decline. So I had to look outside. I had to look elsewhere. And I looked outside of traditional medical system, and I studied Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, and each one gave me wonderful insights, but it was just not giving me the right solutions. And I finally ended up in a functional medicine conference, and everything made so much sense. It was a natural approach to your health, and everything it just made sense. And I started applying it to my own health and my own life, and I was amazed. I mean, I felt better literally in 3 days. All my complaints went away in 3 months. My energy was back, my sleep was back, I slept through the night, no effort. I could ace through the day, my energy was great, I didn't need coffee in the morning anymore, I didn't need a pastry in the late afternoon. It was just a magic switch. And once my hormones got all balanced, I lost 15 pounds without doing anything specifically for it. And so all of a sudden I discovered the ways how you can be well rather than having a Band-Aid in this pill and that pill, in medication after medication. And once I experienced that, I just couldn't go back to practicing the old ways. And so I left the hospital and opened my functional medicine practice. And so for the last 4 years, we help men and women in midlife, which is nowadays officially 35 to 69 is considered midlife. And so we help men and women in midlife to get their energy back and get their brain working again and get their hormones optimized and get back to a normal metabolism, so you can actually feel like yourself again and function. Because how you always run into people who everything just works, like they do a million things, they have abundant energy, they're happy, they look great, they feel great, and you look at them and think, why can't I keep up anymore? And I certainly lived that for 15 years. And so now I'm helping people who don't want to wait for 15 years, or some did and they finally found solutions. And so I'm happy to share today what we discovered. So let me, I got kicked out of slideshow. So let me just restart it, sorry. So main reason we miss so many things in traditional medicine, unfortunately. We never look at the root cause. You know, it's always medications, and medications really work on the level of the symptoms. And so it's sort of like with your car, you know, when you get that check engine sign, you take it to the mechanic. You don't ask them to get rid of check engine sign, right? You're asking them to check the engine and see what's wrong and balance it. And if you keep ignoring it for a while and just get rid of the sign instead of fixing the engine, eventually like things start breaking down the road. And at some point your car is no longer running. And that's what we do in traditional medicine often. You know, blood pressure, high blood pressure, what do? We give you a medication. How often do you have to take it? Every day. Why? Because it's basically, you know, your high blood pressure, your low blood pressure, your high or low thyroid, your high blood sugar, your fatigue, your weight gain, all of those are basically check engine signs. Body is telling you something is not optimized, something is not working well, and it asks for help. And instead, we just give it a pill. And pill is really just a band-aid. I mean, it hides the symptom, but it doesn't fix the problems. That's why people with diabetes or high blood pressure or osteoporosis, even if they choose just to rely on the medications, you pretty much have to be on that medication lifetime. And even though it helps you to slow down the progression, but it doesn't reverse things. And so you still, if you have high blood pressure, you're still at risk for stroke and heart attack down the road. And the same with diabetes, you're still at risk for kidney problems and dialysis and eyesight problems or retinal problems. And so in traditional medicine, unfortunately, we don't look into a root cause and we don't try to reverse it. And the beauty of functional medicine is it's really root cause medicine. And as a root cause medicine, it really asks the question, why is it that you're out of balance? Why you're fatigued? Why you're gaining weight? Why your bones are getting weaker? Why your muscles are getting weaker? Why are you slowing down? Why your brain is foggy? And it's a systematic approach, it's a whole system approach, because another problem in traditional medicine is we became so super specialized. It's like we have a doctor for your heart, we have a separate doctor for your kidneys, we have a doctor for your, I don't know, for your joints, you have a doctor for your brain. And you know what, body is a complete system. It operates as a system. Everything is interrelated. And so when you're addressing root cause, you really have to look deeply into everything to avoid trouble. And that's where the magic happens. And I just pulled several testimonials just to show you what's possible. You know, it's a client that we had several years ago. She actually became a really good friend of ours. And Kathy came to us at 65, so she was not 35. She just retired, and it was a great time to sort of travel and enjoy life. And instead, she was dealing with being overweight and having arthritis and acid reflux and high blood pressure, high cholesterol, things we see in midlife. And Kathy came to us. I think what she was pushed with is just constantly foggy brain and low motivation, and she couldn't lose weight. She actually tried. And that's in her own words that I decided to take a stance and invest into myself to have a quality, healthy life. That was well worth investing. And here is Kathy 6 months later. I'm in the best health ever in my life. My blood pressure and cholesterol are wonderful. I lost 24 pounds. My knees don't hurt. My rashes are gone. I sleep so soundly. And I look better than I did in the last 20 years. And my friends have told me so. And that's a reality for so many of our clients. And if you look at it from traditional medicine standpoint, which I love, I mean, it does miracles when you're acutely ill. It just doesn't help us much when we have all these chronic imbalances. So from traditional standpoint, once you have high blood pressure, you're stuck with it for life. Once you have arthritis, you're stuck with it for life. Once you can't sleep, here's a sleeping pill, otherwise you will never sleep well. And yet we did not we did not use any medications with Cassie. What we did instead was when addressed, and we will talk about 5 pillars of health, or 5 pillars of success, and I'll go in detail over each one. But those are the things that are possible when you actually look at the root cause of issues, and blood pressure becomes reversible. I mean, Cassie started with us, she was on 7 medications, and when she left, she was on none. And again, she's 65, so if you're trying to tell yourself that, well, it's just age, it has nothing to do with age. We can optimize things at any point. Now, that's another client of ours, and he's younger. He was 46 at the time he worked with us, and that's been 3.5 years now. He came to us like this, and he was, he had autoimmune disease, he had psoriasis, high blood pressure, pre-diabetes, and morbid obesity that he had most of his life. This is him again. It took us 6 months, but this is him. It's a very different person. And here is again in his words. He came to us after trying and failing many. I mean, he kept yo-yoing with his diets practically all his whole adult life, and so many things were tried, and he would get better, get worse, get better, get worse. And he was just skeptical and tired and disappointed and felt like a failure. And so he didn't want to do anything anymore. His wife actually was the one that convinced him to come and see us. And we worked pretty closely together for 6 months. He was on the program, and 89 pounds, 6 months late, and 89 pounds later, here is him. My blood pressure is normal, not a single flare of psoriasis since I started the program. And my doctor took me off all my medications. I feel light, I'm happy, and I'm living the best life I've ever had. So Vicky came to us with digestive issues, and again was not sure if it works for her. Vicky was retired, she was in her 70s, overweight, lots of digestive issues, lots of medications for inflammation, achy joints, and here we are, 40 pounds down. No longer need my anti-inflammatory drugs, no longer talking about joint replacement surgery. I mean, people change their lives when they just give their body what body needs in order to work optimally. Here is Delora. Delora was 37, so she was pretty young when she came to us. And she was morbidly obese and had ton of digestive issues and severe diarrhea, I mean, 10, 15 times a day, and was pretty miserable, couldn't really go out, was afraid to eat in public. And, you know, she was 37. So, and when you're younger, things just get restored much quicker. And so we worked for 3 months, and she was fine. I mean, her digestive system was back to normal. And when your digestion works well, everything else lines up. Your hormones adjusted. I mean, we did not do anything for her to lose weight. It just happened naturally. Body just lets go of all this extra weight when there is no inflammation anymore. And so here we are. I just showed you what's possible. We have hundreds of these testimonials, and yet we're stuck in the sick care model right now. And you always wonder, like, why is it that our healthcare doesn't offer all this natural stuff? Is it like, do we have wrong information? Do we lack information? And the reality is, I mean, we are stuck in sick care model. We call it healthcare insurance, but it's sort of like, you know, your car insurance will kick in if you total your car or if you wreck your car, but it's not going to pay for gas or for oil change. And it's the same with your house policy. You know, if your house burns down, it certainly will, your insurance will kick in. But if you just, you know, if your paint is peeling or you need some routine maintenance or some remodeling, you know, it's yours. Insurance is not going to kick in. In healthcare, we really have sick insurance, although we call it health insurance, but the reality is it will kick in when you are truly acutely ill, and then it will help you to cover hospital bills and cover major medications and surgeries and procedures. But when you need routine maintenance, when your nutrition is not optimal, when your gut is not working, when your body loses ability to cleanse optimally, when your hormones are completely out of balance, your insurance is not going to cover that. That's sort of a routine maintenance, and it's your responsibility. And yet we as doctors don't get educated on it. Therefore, we don't educate our patients. And so the expectation and the common belief is, if my insurance doesn't cover it, I probably don't need it. And so we wait to be sick, and it doesn't work for many of us. And I think the problem is that, we don't get a whole lot of health education. We really get the marketing, and nobody markets cucumbers. People market processed foods and medications, and we're the only country that allows to talk about medications on TV and just like markets them to general public. And so we keep thinking that if something is wrong, there is a pill for that. And yet it's not true. I mean, there is no magic pill to stop aging. But you can be proactive, and you have to be, and you have to consider your food being your medicine, and you have to balance your blood sugar and your metabolism, and make sure that your immune system is calm and boosted by appropriate, and minimize inflammation and balance your hormones. All those things are extremely important. So let's talk about pillars of well-being or pillars of health. And those are 5 things that are extremely important for your health. And I will talk about each one in detail, but those are the 5 magic pillars that I found to be absolutely foundational. If you want to be healthy, if you want to be well, no matter what age you are, these things have to happen. And it's nutrition, detoxification or cleansing, hormones, fitness or lifestyle, and mentoring. And let me talk a little bit about how do we get out of balance? Why is it that everything is working perfectly well at 20 and all of a sudden it doesn't at 45 and after? So life is stressful and toxic. And, we all have physical stressors, and those are usually old traumas that didn't heal. Many people don't realize that poor sleep is actually the biggest physical stressor. If you're not sleeping well, if you wake up tired, if you don't have enough hours, if you can't fall asleep in the evening, or you wake up several times during the night and you can't fall asleep easily, it's a problem, and body struggles, and it has to be balanced back to norm. Then there is chemical stress, and of course, the air we breathe, the water we drink. If you have too much alcohol, it's a toxin, obviously. But then it's also, what do you put in your body every day? What do you put in your mouth every day? How many additives in your food that you put in your mouth that actually don't belong there and they're toxic for the body? And how many toxins do you put on your body every day with your daily care without realizing that there are good creams and there are toxic creams? And a lot of creams actually, or self-care products, will actually have hormone disruptors, and so your hormone system goes out of whack because you just put something into your system without thinking about it. And then of course psychological stress, and we just been through pandemic and things changed, and there are a lot of things happening in the world and in our country, and everything from gas prices to what have you, and so there are a lot of reasons to be stressed. And then, of course, you don't get to pick your boss, and you don't get to pick your coworkers, but there are still ways that you can manage stress around you. You cannot change your environment. I mean, you cannot change your reality, but you can change how you perceive that reality, how you interact with it. And you can react to everything, sending your cortisol and adrenaline sky high and destroying your body basically and forcing it to age quickly. Or you can use stress management as a tool to help yourself to just calm down and manage things and just change your internal environment, which is absolutely in your hands. And that's some people meditate, and some people take nature or walks in the nature, and some people camp, and some people listen to the music. And there are a lot of ways to manage your stress, but you have to be very intentional and do it every day. And the biggest and the best and the easiest and the absolutely free tool that we all have is your breathing. And the way your nervous system is wired is, when you breathe in, it's your sympathetic nervous system, it's your fight or flight. And when you breathe out, it's your parasympathetic system, which is rest and digest and calm. And so simply by being intentional with your breathing, and just making your breathe out phase a little longer, you already help your body to de-stress. And I don't want you to try it now, but because you'll fall asleep. But when you are trying to fall asleep in the evening, when you are in bed, what you can do is, if you breathe in on to, let's say, 1, 2, 3 naturally, then try to slow down when you're breathing out, and slow it down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you will do 4 or 5 cycles, and you will notice, I promise you, you will actually notice how much calmer you become instantly. And some people use this technique to sleep, but if nothing else, it's definitely a great technique to get your calm down quickly. Now, hormones. Hormones are obviously very important. They are chemical messengers. They are basically helping body work as one big system. And there are over 500 hormones in your body, and some of them are there to thrive, and some have that survival quality to them, but in the long run they can destroy. And so that's really the balance between those two groups will determine how fast you age, how well you feel, what are you capable of, how you feel, how you look. And so I just wanted to briefly, we will talk about hormones in depth, but I just wanted to say briefly that, many people in middle life start getting belly, and practically everybody who comes to our practice, one of the complaints is, where this belly came from? Like, I never had it, and all of a sudden now it's here, and it just keeps growing. And, there are some hormones that are responsible for storing fat in your body. And the biggest ones are insulin and estrogen and cortisol. And insulin regulates your blood sugar. So if you eat something that makes your blood sugar sky high, which is your carbs, your sweets, insulin will go very high, and it's a fat store, and it will take that high sugar in your blood, and it will make it into fat. Now, estrogen is a sex hormone, and it's great. It determines how brain works and how skin looks and how hair feels. But if you have it out of balance, if you have too much estrogen, then it puts fat on your hips and your bottom, and then there is cortisol, and cortisol is the regulator of all other hormones. It's the most important one. In a short run, it really helps you survive. So when you are in fight or flight response, when you are stressed out, it's the cortisol that goes up. And it's great when you need to run from a tiger, cortisol is perfect. That's what makes you be very fast and very efficient. But it's not meant to stick around for a long time. And so when you are chronically stressed, your cortisol is high all the time, it starts developing that belly fat that just doesn't go away. It's really hard to lose that fat, because you really have to get your hormones back to balance, and only then you can lose that belly. So here is the reality. These are the things that we see in our practice all the time. When we test people, there is chronic stress, your adrenals don't work, lots of people have adrenal fatigue, otherwise others are just constantly super stressed and like tired and wired. And we see congested livers and hormones out of balance. And of course, with perimenopause, periandropause, which is 12 years before you go into menopause and andropause, Those hormone imbalances obviously age your body as well and create its own stress, and you have to know how to deal with it and how to bring it back to balance. And then gut issues and leaky gut and infections, and whole nation is vitamin D deficient, and blood sugar is all over the place because we get so much sugar in our standard American diet. And chronic inflammation is a biggie, and insulin resistance, and we see so much stuff. And the reality is any of these people can present with the same symptoms. And so you really have to know first of all, it requires testing. You can't just guess. And it requires very thorough history taken. And more importantly, it requires that mindset. What is the root cause? Rather than it hurts here, what is Band-Aid for this spot? What is a pill for this symptom? But that's how we trained in traditional medical. That's how we trained in medical schools, first of all. And that's what traditional medical healthcare system wants us to do. The second you show up with the symptoms, everybody, if you're at home, you're just Googling it, and the Google will give you the name of a condition, which is a label, really. And then it will give you medications that supposedly help with that. But all it does is it really just numbs the system, so you're not experiencing as much of it, but it doesn't take care of the problem. So the problem is still there, it's just masked. And that's a big problem with our traditional healthcare system. And just a quick point, it's a Medicare statement, and Medicare is a flagship for all of us. So it really, all insurances have to follow what Medicare sets as a standard. And Medicare believes that promoting care that seeks to prevent health, prevent disease, promote health, and prolong and enhance quality of life is not considered medically necessary, and therefore it's not covered by insurance. You see, they're not saying that you don't need it. They're basically saying that they're not going to cover it. And so you have to be really aware of what it is that you want and what is it that's most important to you, and not just rely on the healthcare system. To me, it was a big wake-up call when I finally felt miserable enough that I just could not function this way anymore. I had to go outside of traditional healthcare model. And yes, I had to go outside of health insurance system as well. But, I had one life to live, and I just wasn't willing to be bad wife and bad daughter and just not feel well for myself. And we often don't realize that the way we feel, doesn't just affect our quality of life, we affect the people we love. I remember my husband asking, why are you always unhappy anymore? And, I didn't know what to say, because it was my question too, until I finally found solutions. And then all of a sudden I felt great again, and life was good, and all that. So let's talk about magic pillars. Let's talk about what makes difference and what helps you feel good. First of all, gut health. And gut health comes in healthy microbes that live in your gut, and the nutrition. And nutrition is a foundation of all. You are what you eat, and it's a true statement. So 2 things. First of all, the only way your body gets vitamins and minerals and nutrients it needs to build up tissues and repair tissues come from your food. There is no other way to get it. They come from your food. So if your nutrition is not optimal, if you are not eating things that your body needs, it cannot restore itself, it cannot repair, it cannot grow in a healthy way. And, with osteoporosis, we often see that there are nutritional deficiencies. In obesity or overweight, practically always there is malnutrition. When we test, people are deficient in many nutrients. And so this whole strategy for weight loss, eat less, exercise more, doesn't work. It's not true. And so it's important that you are on right nutrition that is appropriate for your stage in life and the decade of life, because things change, and that your particular, your individual body gets what it needs. Second part of it, especially as we get to be 40s, we start developing food sensitivities, and we test clients in our programs, and I see food sensitivities right and left. And the reality is, it might be the best food in the world, and it works great for Jane down the street, but if your body cannot handle this specific food, it becomes inflammatory. And if you keep eating it because you don't realize it, then it's a problem because you constantly keep yourself inflamed. And that's a very common thing. We see it very often. And the problem with food sensitivities, there are food allergies. You eat something and you break out in rash. You do it a couple of times, you realize that you probably shouldn't eat it, right? But then when you have food sensitivities, they're hidden. It takes 72 hours for body to react. So you're not going to know why is it that you're having, if you have heartburn today, or a headache, or low energy, or all of a sudden you cannot fall asleep, you're not going to sit and think, what did I eat 72 hours ago? And so food sensitivities are often hidden. They don't give you rash, they just give you other symptoms. And so it's harder to think about it, but it's very important. And if your nutrition is not balanced and appropriate for you, you're going to end up with a lot of deficits. You will always be inflamed, and that will cause arthritis and osteoporosis and many other things. And the second pillar of well-being is detoxification. That's a fancy name for cleansing. Your body cleanses all the time, so stuff comes in, and everything that crosses your lips or goes through your skin, gets absorbed through your skin, is either really good for you and helps you thrive, or it's actually toxic, and then body has to work really hard to get rid of it. And there are multiple organs that do it for you, but liver, of course, is the most important. And if you are constantly inflamed, body just makes a lot more toxins. And so liver is just struggling at some point because it's been too much too long. And often that causes weight gain because body just hides those toxins into the fatty tissue, and lots of other things happen. The biggest problem when your gut is not working well, or when your liver is not working well and you're not cleansing, or you're not digesting and absorbing well, you always get in trouble with your hormones, because your hormones get activated and processed and eliminated between liver and the gut. And so if you're not cleansing well, your liver is congested, it's not going to activate or deactivate your hormones. And so you get stuck with either extra or deficiencies, and that's the problem. Lifestyle is more than fitness, but fitness is a big part of it. And we are designed to move, and that's a reality. And nobody expects you to do this, but this is not working either. And we always look to cut corners, and it's important once we reach, when you're 30, pretty much, if you're well, otherwise, if you're healthy, just cardio will keep you in a great shape. But once you reach 40, you start losing muscle mass, and you have to do some degree of some weight training to help balance that. And as you start losing muscle, your bones get weaker too, because it's just, again, body is a system, everything works together. And so you need to start loading your bones in a certain way, and making sure that, especially if you have risk factors, like if your immune system is not working well, people with autoimmune disease often develop osteoporosis very early in life. And even men do, although men in general are a little bit less risk for osteoporosis because they have bigger bone mass, and nevertheless, if they have autoimmunity, rules change and everything is different. And so there are a lot of ways to work and exercise, work on your muscle mass and on the bone mass. And of course, OsteoStrong is like the best biohack for your bone health that I personally know, and that's why I love it so much. And so you have to exercise. Once you get closer to like 60s, there's a starting 70s for sure, you start having issues with balance. So you have to be preventive and start working on it early enough. And so there are rules to exercise with each decade. Like at 40, you can exercise quite a bit. Once you hit 50 and you are heading towards menopause or andropause, you have to get smart. You cannot over-exercise, it makes you inflamed. You cannot under-exercise because that makes you inflamed. So everything requires that balance. So like when we work with people in our programs, we actually give them exercise prescription, give them videos so they know exactly what to do, and give them recommendations. And that creates a big difference in your sense of well-being, in your energy. Exercise helps to regulate your hormones as well. It affects your testosterone specifically, and for women it will affect your estrogen as well. And those are the big hormones for your bone health and your muscular health, and for brain, and for so many other organs. And then hormones. And hormones are, like I said, they're messengers. They help the whole body to work as one system, and they are extremely important. And first of all, if you are inflamed, your hormones get out of balance. Second, as we reach pretty much past 40, somewhere between 40 and 45, our hormones start transitioning into what we call perimenopause for women, and it takes about 12 years, and periandropause for men, which also takes years, although it's a little bit less symptomatic, I would say. And then somewhere past 50, between 50 and 60 for all of us, women will go into menopause, men usually shift towards andropause, you get less and less and less sex hormones, and your cortisol has to take over, and the whole dynamic changes, and all of a sudden you start gaining weight and losing bone mass and losing muscle mass, and your brain doesn't work as well, and your energy goes down. So all of those, and your mood is all over the place. And that's really what, that's how you know that your hormones are out of balance. And so in terms of weight gain, these are classic for, this look is classic for people whose estrogen is out of balance. And, estrogen puts most of your fat into the hips. And that's not just for female. I mean, for female, you start getting towards you get into perimenopause or menopause, you still have some estrogen, progesterone goes way down, and so all of a sudden you have this estrogen dominance. So whether it's relative or you're missing the whole thing, but when estrogen is dominant, you start putting your fat into your hips. And we don't like the way it looks, but more importantly, it puts you at risk for like breast cancers and prostate cancer in men and other things. And so it's important to address. And with estrogen imbalance, there are practically all tissues in your body will have estrogen receptors. So when your estrogen goes down or it's out of balance, you get foggy brain because your brain doesn't work and it starts aging, and now you're at risk for Alzheimer's disease down the road. Your muscles get affected, your skin gets affected, you lose that nice turgors that always looked so good, and all of a sudden you get these flabby arms and legs and all that. And then it's multiple, like your bones need estrogen and testosterone. So when those go down with age, you start losing bone mass. If you're inflamed, it's even faster. But all those things have to be addressed when you are dealing with imbalances. And then adrenals are, so this is your belly fat. And it's very different fat. It's a stress-related fat. And with stress-related fat, your belly starts getting bigger, and that makes you insulin resistant. And that when your body makes more and more and more cortisol, because it's in survival mode, because it's so inflamed, it will start making less and less and less sex hormones. And so even if you're younger, if you're really inflamed, your cortisol is really up, and then at some point it can bottom out. And these are the people who are achy and stiff and can't fall asleep at night, and they're anxious, or they wake up in the middle of the night. And this predisposes you to a lot of diseases down the road, 15-20 years down the road. These people are at risk for diabetes, for autoimmune disease. And so it's important to address. And it's important to figure out the root cause. What's causing all this imbalance and inflammation? And thyroid is sort of gaining weight all over your body, and thyroid is extremely important hormone. If your cortisol out of balance, your thyroid will not be able to work well. So often when we check and we see thyroid abnormalities, you really have to address cortisol and make sure that that one is balanced. And if it's not done, that's what I often see in my practice, and I'm not the only one. You know, all of us functional medicine practitioners know that you can do anything you want with sex hormones or thyroid. If your cortisol out of balance, you will never help people feel well. You can get the numbers looking good. And these are the people who come to us and they have thyroid issues, and they come to us and they say, I'm taking Synthroid or thyroid medication for 15 years. I still gain weight, have no energy, have cold feet and cold hands, and my hair is gray prematurely, and I just barely navigate. And my doctor tells me my TSH is normal. Well, it's not just about TSH. In traditional medicine, we play with the numbers, but it's not about numbers. It's actually about balance. And liver, we see more and more issues with that because we deal with so much toxicity every day without realizing it, that liver just gets congested and it can't process it all. And so in the past, like when I started practicing 30 years ago, if we saw this, we knew that, you know, this person's drinker, it's an alcohol, that's an issue. But nowadays, we actually have epidemics for fatty liver, and people never drink. I mean, they're not drinkers at all. So really, it's no longer alcohol that's an issue. It's toxicity, and it's high carb diet often, and high fructose syrups that actually will create fatty liver. And it's reversible, even though traditional medicine tells you once you have it, you have it. It's not true. We see many patients for whom it actually gets reversed with the right steps. And this is thyroid, and the same thing. Traditional medicine has this huge range, and pretty much everybody fits into it. And so the assumption is that things are great, and they're not. Reality is, for your thyroid to be functioning optimally, which means for you to feel great and look great, it really needs to be between 0.3 and 2. And often people come to us, they're way outside of 2, but they're under 5.5 or 5.7. And so they're told that everything is normal. And that was definitely my story as well. 15 years of misery. And everything was normal. And sometimes people actually need a little supplementation or replacement, but often it's just a result of poor nutrition, inadequate nutrition, missing certain nutrients, or food sensitivities. There are certain foods that will actually attack your thyroid and create antibodies and cause what we call Hashimoto's disease or autoimmune thyroiditis, where thyroid cannot function because your own body attacks it. And the reason that it attacks it, you keep eating foods that are to your body look similarly to thyroid protein. And so body just goes and attacks the foods that it cannot digest. And as a consequence, it actually attacks your thyroid as well. And so again, nutrition, cleansing, and your hormones, everything is absolutely related, interrelated, and you cannot just address one thing and hope for the best. It has to be addressed as a whole system. And I think that's why we get the great results we do in our practices, because we're looking at the whole body, not just one system or one hormone or one test. Same with testosterone for men. You know, the normal range is 200 to 800 in middle life. When you're younger, it's much higher. But the reality is, here is a range when you feel good, and that's somewhere between 650 and 800. And once you're below this number, you're not feeling well. Your energy is down, and that's the same for men and women. Women will have different numbers. Obviously, men have this as numbers for men. Women have much lower numbers to start with. But the same idea, when your testosterone goes down, in midlife. Your energy is down, your motivation is down, you just don't feel like doing things anymore. And people often lose their hobbies because they just kind of don't care. And they lose libido, which is big part of quality of life. And there are problems with relationships, which often affects both spouses, and it's very unfortunate because all of it can be balanced. And the testing is extremely important. If you don't test, you don't know. Like I said, I see a lot of people with similar problems that are not, you cannot just say, low energy. It can be anything. You have to test. You have to know what you're dealing with. And so it's always a system. All of these are interrelated. It's important to have a mentor because just like, when I come to OsteoStrong, I've been there million times and I know the drill and I know what to do, but it's nice to have somebody to come up and say, okay, today we're doing this exercise. It's nice to be guided. Health is complicated. This whole idea of I will Google things and I'll figure it out, you end up doing piecemeals. When you work with a mentor, with a practitioner, he can lead you through the right steps without doing a lot of trials and failure. And so in our programs, in our practice, we actually like to create individual programs where we test and we see what is out of balance, and then we use the whole system to bring it back to balance. And the important part is, you can read about functional medicine, you can read about OsteoStrong, you can read about anything, but if you're not doing it, if you're not involved, if you're just learning, you're not going to feel better. And that's what procrastination is about. We just keep thinking and reading and never doing anything, and that's where the problem is. So if it's been a problem for you for a while, if you're not feeling optimal, you really need to finally make steps and take care of it, because otherwise you will feel worse and worse. And so, Tessie, how are we doing on time?
We are coming up right on the hour. So we can start Q&A whenever you're ready, or you're done, right on time.
Yep. So you can open, I see there's questions in the chat. Let me, real quick, do you want me to pull the slide? Actually, let me stop sharing this. I will pull my slide up and then we can answer the questions.
Yeah, so anyone who has questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and then we will put a link to sign up for that complimentary call with Dr. Lozinskaya. And I know we had a few questions that came up earlier. One was, do you accept Medicare patients, and where are you located?
So yeah, those are the questions that I always ask. So where are we located? So we are, physical location is I-25 and East County Line Road. So it's Inglewood, Laundry, it's right by Park Meadows, basically. And so that's where the office is. Now, we have clients statewide, and often people cannot get to the office, or they work and, or it's too much of a drive. And so we see people on Zoom, so we're virtual as well. So we pretty much, I have clients in Green Junction and we see them on Zoom, and it's not an issue. Tests get sent and supplements get sent, and we see them on Zoom, and etc. So we're fully set up as a virtual clinic with a physical location as well. In terms of Medicare, so as I showed you earlier, that Medicare slide, unfortunately, your insurance is not going to cover wellness. There are some things that we actually can put through the labs, and that's through the insurance, and that's some labs, but a lot of functional testing is not covered. Most of your wellness is not covered. It's like oil change. Your car insurance doesn't cover it, but if you don't change the oil, you'll end up with the issues that, so you don't want to wait until you get issues, acute problems that are covered by insurance. You want to do wellness stuff and prevention is your responsibility. It's not covered by insurances.
Got it. There was sort of a connected question to that, where someone had shared that sometimes if they have known that their doctor knows as well, they were like low vitamin D. She says, my doctor agreed that I might have low vitamin D, so the blood test for vitamin D was covered by my insurance.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add regarding that?
Yes, there are some labs that will be covered by your insurance, and vitamin D is one of those. There are a lot of insurances actually, like my personal insurance said no to vitamin D check, so I had to pay out of pocket, and it actually wasn't a big deal. But bottom line is, many insurances will cover some vitamin levels and some hormone levels, and so certain things are covered. And if it's covered, we certainly put it through insurance, but there are very few.
Great. And Lynn asks, what are some of the type of tests that you recommend an individual does to determine deficiencies in their system?
So when we are working with our clients, like I said, we usually create a program, and program is based, on your life story and what's going on with you and how you feel and what's out of balance. And we take very thorough history, and, there are a lot of questionnaires that you fill out, so we know what's going on most likely. And then we test. And testing that we use in our programs, depending on the client, we often test the gut, because a lot of issues originate in your gut. So we do stool testing, we do breath testing when it's indicated, we do blood testing, so nutritional deficiencies, so certain things are tested intracellular, certain things are tested in your blood, in your plasma, in your serum. There are certain things that we test in saliva, in urine, and so we do hormone testing, nutritional deficiencies, blood test is the best. And so it depends. I mean, we can do all kinds of testing, and we can get very fancy. It just depends what you need. We don't run all tests in the world. We see what's appropriate for each person. That's why the programs are very individualized.
Got it. And a follow-up question regarding testing. Someone asked, do you ever utilize heavy metal hair tests or GI map tests?
So we use both. GI map, excuse me. So GI map does not show heavy metals, so it's not a heavy metal testing. GI map is a great test to see what's going on with the gut, and we use it quite a bit for gut health. When we're looking for heavy metal testing, there are other tests that we use. Hair is part of it. It's not all of it, because you want to see, if you're looking, let's say for mercury, there is organic and inorganic. One is neutral, one is actually toxic. So you don't want to just limit yourself to hair. So we do hair, but then we also look at urine, we also look at blood. And so for heavy metals, there is a comprehensive testing that's really needed.
Got it. And we did have a question that asked about potential investment. Does it depend on the program you do, or did you want to share any information on that, what someone might be looking at?
So discovery call is free. Wellness consultation, we do charge $150, and it's 1 hour with me, 60 minutes, one-on-one. And a wellness consultation, we dive in depth. You'll fill out questionnaires, we go through all the symptoms, we know what's going on with you, and then I get more history, and then we talk what steps needs to be taken in order for you to get back to balance, and we discuss the program and what steps it would involve. That's $150. I do not see people straight in the wellness consultation. I offer free discovery call for one reason. I want to make sure that your imbalances are something I can help you with, and that we're right fit to even discuss, because if you're looking for something our practice doesn't do, I don't want you to invest for nothing. And I also don't want to invest my time for nothing. And so that's what it is. Now, if people decide to do the programs, then that's based on what's going on. it's all inclusive, so you know the pricing up front, and you decide if that's something you want to do or not. But it's, I can't tell you until I know what exactly is going on with you. And again, that's why there is free discovery call, and to learn about you more and let learn a little bit more about how we do things. And that's why wellness consultation is discounted to $150. So we can look into details, see what's going on, what needs to happen, and then, decide from there.
Cool. And few more questions. One person asked, sounds like they're in Glenwood, Colorado, so about 3 hours away. And I know you mentioned you have clients in like Grand Junction. How do you do like the tests for more virtual clients?
Yep. So functional medicine testing, it's usually certain kits that we actually ship to your home, and you do it at home. If it's saliva or urine or stool, you just do it. There is prepaid FedEx shipment, and you just drop it off at closest FedEx location in your area. And then we get results electronically, then we get on Zoom and discuss the results. When if you need blood draws through, let's say, LabCorp, then we send the requisition to you, and you just go to closest LabCorp location where you live, and they're everywhere. So it's usually not an issue.
Makes sense. And then out of curiosity, from like the bone health perspective of things, can you speak to like what hormones are most important for bone health, and what are like the consequences if those hormones are out of balance, even if like you're maybe doing OsteoStrong and your nutrition is good, but those hormones are out of whack? What are those hormones, and how do they maybe affect your bone health?
Yep. So great question, actually. So first of all, for women especially, estrogen. Your bones have receptors for estrogen. And so when estrogen goes down naturally with age, your bones will get weaker and you will start losing calcium. And so menopause is a risk factor for osteoporosis. So estrogen is number one. There are ways to replace it with bioidentical estrogen, or bioidentical hormone replacement is one of the ways to reverse osteoporosis or prevent it. There are some supplements that are not estrogen, but they're estrogen-like in your body. But so there are ways to deal with that, but estrogen is number one in women. Now, for men, it's more with testosterone. I mean, estrogen is important as well, but men have a lot less of it, and they have a lot of testosterone. So for men, testosterone is the biggest driver. And same thing, as testosterone goes down, your muscle mass goes down significantly. And as you start losing muscle mass, body sort of weakens the bones as a secondary effect. And so for men, testosterone is extremely important. And then overall, because like I said, there is no one thing in the body or one system that you can look at, in an isolated way. People who are inflamed chronically have, very often have abnormal cortisol. And when cortisol is abnormal and has been for a very long time, that creates inflammation in the body. And so cortisol goes very high in response to inflammation, but it's pro-inflammatory as well. And so eventually, as your cortisol was very high for a long time, eventually it gets depleted and it goes down. And that's when people start having autoimmune disease and sometimes cancers. And in that setting, because you're so inflamed, body is trying to compensate certain ways, and one of the compensatory ways is to wash calcium out of your bones, just to try to keep pH of the body neutral. And so being chronically inflamed with cortisol all over the map will put you at risk for osteoporosis. It's a much slower process. It's not as straightforward as estrogen, but it's part of the whole play.
Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's all the questions we had that came through. We will definitely be sending out the replay to everyone who registered, and probably be posting it on our Facebook page as well. And I'll share it with you, Dr. Lozinskaya. Greg, did you have any last words?
Yeah, well, first, just thank you so much, Dr. Lozinskaya. I thought that was excellent and very informative. For everyone on who's either listening this live or listening to the replay, I just want all of you to know that we value doctors like Lozinskaya, and we do webinars like this. For one, because we want you to be healthy overall, aside from just your bone health and the things that you're coming to OsteoStrong for, but also specific to your bone health and the goals you're trying to do at OsteoStrong. We want everyone to know that I think what Dr. Lozinskaya said is spot on. Like, you have to have all of your systems in balance. And so even if you're putting this amazing stimulus on your bone with the technology we offer, how well your body is primed to build bone and how it receives that signal is going to determine what type of results you get. And so I would encourage all of you to take ownership of your own health. Seek out resources and experts like Dr. Lozinskaya. Look into your hormone health, your gut health, your nutrition, your lifestyle, your stress. All these important things play a role. And so I know often we like to just look at things in isolation, like Dr. Lozinskaya was talking about, but I think we can confidently say that the body doesn't work that way. So but thank you again. I thought this was excellent. Anyone who's interested in, again, learning more about OsteoStrong, getting started with us and just doing it, we do a free consultation as well. And similar reason that as Dr. Lozinskaya, we want to make sure that your goals and what you're looking to achieve are a good fit for OsteoStrong. And so if you'd like to do that, there should be a link in the chat. It's www.osteostrongdenver.com/webinar, and you can get signed up for a free consultation with us. But thank you everyone for joining, and we will be posting a replay.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.